Hi, and welcome to Psych 101. Today we are going to be talking about psychological research. Research actually came from the term recherche, actually two words etymologically, re meaning expressing intensive force, and search of course means to search. So that is research in essence. It is an intensive search to bring sense to the various psychological phenomena that we see all the time around us. From interactions to within the individual to extending to social context, and of course, we also study animals too. It is in essence a systematic investigation in order to draw facts and hopefully conclusions from those facts. And in essence, it is just a search for meaning, right? By the way, the term came from 16th century French. So I mentioned systematic investigation, but what is the system, this framework governing how we do our research? In essence, it is the scientific method. And before I bore you, let's just see how it parallels with the different goals of psychology. As in the scientific method, we start with a problem. Based on our observations, our own fascinations, we suddenly look at a particular phenomena. And we ask, why does this happen? How does it happen? What are the factors, predictors, etc.? And if you notice, it's similar to the describe component of the goals of psychology. Afterwards, when we have a problem, we come up with hypotheses. If this happens, then maybe this is because of this, etc. But our hypothesis, of course, has to be tested. Otherwise, it's just speculation. And when we test it, we have to make sure that we know when we are wrong and when we are right in order to have sound and valid conclusions. Sorry for that lag. Now, the scientific method can be very big, but we have paradigms that show us how to go about it, different manifestations. Paradigms are essentially just a model. They are models on how to do things or how to view things based on our own worldviews and what we think about research and what we think about the world and our reality. So one of the paradigms is the positivist paradigm that was actually the first paradigm from the natural sciences. For them, everything can be measured because everything is predictable and logical. All phenomena prescribe some particular pattern. We can observe and measure that pattern. So for example, in compensation theory, if I give a worker sufficient money, then I can expect productivity to increase and they would begin to love their work. That's not always the case, isn't it? Sometimes, money is not enough. A research actually showed that if you give a worker money, regardless of the amount, it can be millions, productivity would still plateau. Now, why is that the case? Why is my logic, my prediction suddenly false? What am I not taking into consideration? In the same research that found out that the amount of money compensating a worker can actually plateau productivity, they found out that everybody has different manifestations of, they have different definitions or perceptions on what is happiness in work, on what is success. So their motivations would vary depending on what they really want to have or gain from the workplace. Same research found that it is actually a sense of autonomy. Now, because everybody's views can be different, we have our next paradigm, the interpretative or constructivist paradigm. Truth is subjective. Some people think the Mayon volcano is in Naga, not in Albay. Might start with a mocha. But who are we to contest that? Charot lang yung example, ha? But in the constructivist paradigm, the world is not as predictable because actually our thoughts and the way we process things is influenced by culture, experience, and of course our relationships. A good example of a research falling under the constructivist or interpretative paradigm is Renee Brown's study on worthiness. It's actually one of my favorite qualitative researchers. So Renee Brown went about conducting hundreds of interviews, hundreds of focus group discussions, collecting stories from people on what they think worthiness is, what makes them worthy, because some people have this perception of themselves. And she found from weaving together those stories that worthiness is actually being okay with vulnerability. The next is the critical or transformative paradigm. Lots of subgroups: feminist, action research, minority research, LGBT research. This, in essence, operates on the idea that there is injustice governing each psychological phenomena. The world is supposed to be equitable or equal, but it is not. Power is skewed. A good example is gendered spaces research. Architecture. Ever notice why women's restrooms have longer lines than male restrooms? And it was found that the architectures who designed women's spaces are actually male, and in turn are not aware of the biological needs of a woman. And that can be problematic because you can see unchecked privilege and structural enforcements that can lead to inconvenience. And critical theory wants to change that. Lastly, we have pragmatic. The pragmatic paradigm operates on the idea that truth is what is useful, kaya nga pragmatic. So it looks at processes, systems, etc., and what are the phenomena that can be used for development. A good example are operations research. So in operations research, I'm from public health, so we do this a lot. This is actually how we form health policies, health programs, etc. Now, let's say there are psychosocial barriers or social-civic barriers to health-seeking behaviors. If you're sick, you go to the hospital. That's what we want, but it isn't necessarily the case. And one factor is because there is inadequate access. Some people live so far away that they can't afford, or they don't have the means to transport to a hospital to see a doctor. So we come up with an intervention. Let's say I'm going to supply ambulances to every hospital area so that they can go to the people, pick them up. And I'm going to test that intervention into different geographical locations. I'm going to analyze that so I can reform my intervention. Now, actually, there was a similar study that pilot tested that intervention, providing ambulances to hospitals, and they found that it isn't actually what the people needed or wanted or what the service providers needed. In some areas, like in Mindanao, there were very GIDA places, geographically isolated and disaster risk areas, and what they needed was a horse, not an ambulance. So we can use research to test what is useful for the people, to also enhance the programs we deliver, the policies we deliver, and for better research, translation, and application. And that's it. That is, in essence, the different research paradigms. Note that they can actually overlap with each other. Sometimes things can be both pragmatic and critical. It just depends on how the research was done and what assumptions about the world or truth in general did the research have. That's all.